to talk about one more thing before we start graphing some of these polar equations. We're going to talk about how to convert from polar equations into rectangular. Sometimes it's very valuable to get a better picture of what we're dealing with when we're not too familiar with this. Sometimes it's nice because they're easier in rectangular. Sometimes they're not, but we want to practice to be prepared when they are. So here's the deal. This is the same exact thing that we're dealing with from the last video. We have x squared plus y squared equals r squared. We have x equals r cosine theta and y equals r sine theta. We're just going to be going in the reverse order. If you remember from the last video, every time we saw x squared plus y squared, we replaced this with r squared. Every time we saw x or y by themselves, we replaced it with the appropriate r cosine theta for x or r sine theta for y.
Stage nightclub? Okay.
Whenever we see r squared, we can replace that with x squared plus y squared, or r cosine theta with x, r sine theta with y. That's really the three things that we can do to replace
450
coordinates with rectangular coordinates. We're just replacing the pieces individually.
SCP
There's also one additional helpful hint that you need to know. We can always multiply both sides of a polar equation by r. That's really helpful, especially when we take a look at something like the first couple examples. When we look at r cosine theta, I don't see an r squared. I don't see an r cosine theta. I don't see an r sine theta. I see r equals cosine theta. If I subtract it, it doesn't help. If I divide it, it doesn't help. This is really
I had a napkin.
Very doable.
The
right
bar
now
was
for
coming
us.
at me in the
So
bar
what's
to do an
allowed
OP
is
brief,
we
and I was
can
like,
multiply
game.
both sides of this equation by r. Now, do you see what's going to help us with that? If we multiply both sides by r,
Interesting.
on the left-hand side, we get r squared. On the right-hand side,
And you
we
know
get
what you
r
do?
cosine theta.
You take the bartender, make him mayor.
Now, this is super nice because we see right here, hey, r squared is equal to x squared plus y squared. Whenever we saw x squared plus y squared, we were able to replace it with r squared. Now the reverse is true. When you see r squared, we can certainly replace that with x squared plus y squared. And we've just converted this piece of our polar equation into something that's rectangular.
Interesting. So,
now,
become mayor, you need to be a bartender.
That is x. So we can replace that piece with x. This is oftentimes a really good first thing to do, is if you don't see any sort of r squared or any r cosine, r sine theta, we can multiply both sides of that equation by r.
Take us for a walk in the valley.
Ultimately get an r squared at least somewhere, and typically in either an x or y or both. So that's something.
Yeah, we were using
nice.
the keal.
Now we're practically done.
Got the flashlight,
you can subtract x on both sides if you'd like to get
the expert camera guy. Yeah, I'll have one, and you'll have one in the foundation x squared here. You'll be this one. But I'll be the leader of the team, and you graph that when we're done. You take that video camera, and usually over the D12. The missions we made
this
about
is
that worked well.
Fine for us. Once we've done this, we've converted from polar equation into rectangle.